Hello fellow musicians and music enthusiasts. In this video we're going to talk about the RCM Level 3 Practical Piano Exam. Everything here is based on the 2022 Piano Syllabus, which was released by the RCM in March of 2022 and is the current syllabus as of this recording, which is in May I should say, of 2022. What we're going to talk about here is the overview of each section of the exam, the permitted substitutions, the grading scheme, and the changes that were made, if any, from the 2015 piano syllabus. So let's begin. So first, an overview of the exam. The exam has three main sections: Repertoire, Technical Requirements, and Musicianship. If you've done any of the previous level exams, you will be very familiar with this structure. So let's talk about each of these sections in turn, starting with Repertoire. For the Repertoire section, we need to learn three pieces, just like we remember from the previous two levels. So list A, B, and C. Now, the lists are named a little bit differently in level 3 than before. So previously, list A was called the Baroque and Classical Repertoire. Here it's just called the Baroque Repertoire. List B used to be called the Romantic 20th and 21st Century Repertoire, which is now list C. And instead, list B is now called the Classical and Classical Style Repertoire. Now, previously, the list C was called Inventions, and as you can see, we don't have the inventions here. And remember that for each piece, you can earn 2 extra marks if you have it memorized. Moving on. For the technical requirements, we have our technical tests and etude. Those are the two parts. So let's look at the technical tests. Here we have our scales and chords. Now, for level 3, we now have to start playing our scales hands together, as you can see indicated by HT, and the chords are still played hands separate. So what exactly do we need to learn in terms of scales? Well, for the major scales for this level, we need D, F, and B flat major. And for the minor, we have their relative minors, so B, D, and G, harmonic and melodic versions. The formula pattern here is D, so D major. And for the chromatic scale, we need to play 1 starting on D, and chromatic scale is the only one here that can still be played hands separate. For the chords, so exactly the same as we had for scales. So we need to know our 3 major triads, D, F, and B flat, and our 3 minor triads, B, D, and G. And of course, we need to know them in broken and solid forms. As for the etude, starting in level 3, we now actually need to learn 2 etudes. So previously for level 1 and 2, we just needed to learn 1, and now it's actually 2. All right, let's move on. For the musicianship section, we have our ear tests and sight reading as we did before. So ear tests, we have clapback, intervals, chords, and playback. And for the sight reading, we have rhythm and playing. So nothing new here so far. Now let's look at the details of each of these. So for the clapback, it's going to be in either 3/4 or 4/4 time. So for those of you that don't know, clapback is when the examiner plays a short melody for you, and then you have to clap it back. All right, intervals. So for this level, we need to be able to identify a minor third, major third, perfect fourth, and perfect fifth intervals. For the chords, so this is where we must identify the quality of the chords. For this level, it's major and minor triads, just like we had for the previous level. And finally, for the playback, so this is where you have to play back a melody that the examiner plays for you. The possible keys here are D or F major and D or G minor, and the starting note can be the tonic, the mediant, or the dominant. Remember, tonic is the first note, mediant is the third, and dominant is the fifth. For the sight reading for rhythm, the possible times are 3/4 or 4/4, and for the playing, the possible keys are C, G, D or F major, A or D minor, and the time signature is going to be 4/4. And now let's move on to the substitutions. Now remember that substitutions are optional. You don't have to substitute anything if you don't want to, but if you choose to substitute, let's keep in mind these rules. So the first rule is that students can substitute a maximum of 2 pieces, one from repertoire and or one from etudes. For the repertoire substitutions, you can replace one piece from any list with a piece from a level higher, which in this case is level 4. For the list C piece, you can replace it with you can also replace it with a teacher's choice, which has to be of similar length and difficulty. As for the etude substitutions, we can replace one etude with either the level 4 etude, a teacher's choice, or a popular selection list. Now let's talk about the grading scheme. Actually, the grading scheme is exactly the same as we had for the previous level, even though we do have 2 etudes here, but their total mark is still exactly the same. So let's just break this down again to review. For the repertoire, that's our biggest section, 56 marks in total, and this is how they are broken down. So 16 for list A, 18 for list B, and 16 for list C, and 6 marks total for memorization. Technical requirements, we have a total of 24 possible marks, so the etudes make up 12 of those, and technical tests the other 12. Musicianship, 20 total, ear tests 10, and sight reading 10, for a total of 100, and the passing grade is 60. As for the changes from the 2015 syllabus, again, there were no changes made as to the requirements for the exam. The only update here that RCM made were to the pieces in the books, so they just changed them up a little bit to make them fresh. Okay, so that's it for the overview of our level 3 practical piano exam. Hopefully you found this useful. If you are planning to take this exam, we wish you luck, and we'll see you in the next video.